When I decided to make this video, I knew I was going to take some heat from the 370Z loyalists, but upon doing more research on the car, wow, you people really love them and won't take any criticisms about it. So I almost scrapped the video idea, but then I thought, nah, I like to live dangerously. I'm gonna do it. So here we are. Welcome to why I think the 350Z is better than the 370Z. If there's any 370Z fans still watching, just know I'm not going to rag on your car. I think the 370 is a fantastic car, and though I like the 350 a little more, it also has plenty of flaws. I'm simply going to present my opinions here. You can do what you want with them. Let's take a look at the general specifications of these two fine cars, starting with the 350Z. The Z34 was released in 2002 as a 2003 model year and finally wrapped up in 2009. It can be had in either a 3-door hatchback coupe or a 2-door soft-top roadster, and no matter what body style and trim level you choose, you get the peppy 3.5-liter V6. There were 3 engine variations to the 350Z's production run, all of which remained 3.5 liters but offered improvements in horsepower numbers. The OG power plant VQ35DE made 287 horsepower and 274 foot-pounds of torque. The next version made 300 horsepower and 260 foot-pounds of torque, and can be found in the 35th anniversary edition mated to the manual transmission, and in the 2006 model at any trim level. And finally, everyone's favorite, BQ35HR engine produced 306 horsepower and 268 foot-pounds of torque. It has either a 5-speed automatic or a 6-speed manual. Both are robust transmissions, but the manual is more fun. 0 to 60 miles an hour can be achieved in a range of mid to high 5 seconds. This depends on which engine is in the Z and the weight. Some trim levels pack on more heft. Top speed is around a thrilling 155 miles an hour. Wasn't that fun? Let's see the 370Z now. The Z34 was sold from 2009 to 2020, but then you say, wait a second. A few minutes ago you said the 350 was made into 2009, to which I say, that is correct. It was potentially possible to get a 2009 350Z or a 2009 370Z. However, I should note that the only available body option for the 2009 Z34 was the Roadster. As you probably already knew, or at least assumed, most of the qualities of the 350 have been passed on to the 370. It can be had in either a 3-door hatchback coupe or a 2-door soft-top roadster. No matter which body style and trim level you choose, you get the brawny 3.7-liter V6. The engine in the 370Z is a powerful, naturally aspirated 3.7-liter V6, making 330 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. The Nismo uses the same 3.7-liter engine, but is tuned for a pleasant 350 horsepower and 276 pound-feet of torque. Transmissions have been made more flavorful for the Z34. You can have a 7-speed automatic with paddle shifters, or a classic 6-speed manual with a brilliant synchro rev match system. 0 to 60 miles an hour can be achieved in a range of high 4 seconds to low 5 seconds. Again, the 0 to 60 time is varied by weight of the vehicle and transmission type. Top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour. However, I'm going to say that given a long enough straight and no limiter, this car would reach around 170. And now you know how these two cars duke it out on paper. And on paper, it would seem the 370Z is clearly superior. But the driving experience isn't all about numbers and spec sheets. It's about feeling and emotion. But speaking of on paper, the 370Z didn't do nearly as well in sales for Nissan as the 350Z did. In fact, within the first 3 years, the 350Z sold more than all 11 years of the 370Z. The 350 during its about 7-year production run sold more than double the 370 during its 11 years production run. In the United States, for the 2020 year, not even 2,000 units sold. I think part of the boosted sales and enthusiasm for the 350Z had to do with pop culture and how everyone was into tuner cars around that time. Everyone knew what the 350Z was, everyone wanted one, they were cool, and they were in movies. It was just a hot car to have. By the time the 370 rolled around, that enthusiasm had faded. The 370Z was a good, fun car, but people just weren't interested, and the low sales numbers show that. Also, the 350Z was just more of a big deal when it launched. The prior Z car was the 300ZX, but the final year for that being in the US was 1996. America and Europe went over 6 years without having a Z car. So when the 350Z was announced, not only was that a big deal in itself, but it was styled radically different than the 300ZX. The 350 took styling cues from the original 240Z, while also being fresh and modern. It was exciting news and everyone was excited about it. The 370Z wasn't any of that. It was just an updated and uprated 350. And the fact that they produced the 370 for 11 years with hardly any changes looks to me like Nissan stopped caring about the 370 long ago. I'm stoked about the 400Z because it seems like Nissan does care about their Z cars, after all. But that's a separate video for another time. Unfortunately for Nissan, their reputation among the general public has been falling for well over a decade. During the 90s, Nissan wasn't doing so hot financially. The French car company Renault partnered with Nissan, alleviating a big chunk of their debt, but also taking a big stake in Nissan. Renault sent their man, Carlos Ghosn, to bring Nissan back up to profitable, which he did, but at the price of cutting corners. Nissan factories shut down, thousands of employees laid off, and lower quality parts were used to make their cars. Nissan focused on making tons of cheap fleet cars, and it shows. Carlos Ghosn did make Nissan profitable, but at the cost of their once solid, reliable, and fun car-making reputation. In 2018, Mr. Ghosn was fired from Nissan and arrested for siphoning money from the company, along with other charges. Maybe now Nissan can get back to its roots, and I hope it does. But since both the 350Z and the 370Z were made during the Ghosn era, it's plain to see that some cheap parts were used, and it doesn't seem like much money and engineering went into keeping the Z cars fresh during their long production runs. It's kind of hard to understand this case if you haven't driven a lot of different cars before, but try to take my word for it, because the driving experience is truly different for every car. If you didn't know better, you'd assume any car with more power and more technology would be the better car to drive. Turns out that isn't always the case. It really comes down to the character of the car. How does it make you feel? The 350Z is a fairly simple, small, 2-seater sports car that loves being tossed around windy roads and going fast whenever you want it to. It just feels raw and exciting and willing to be pushed to the limit. It's an absolute joy to drive, as its intended purpose. The 370Z is very similar, and you could almost say the exact same thing about it. Almost. See, something changed about the character of the 370. It grew up, it got mature, which is great for daily driving, but it lost that sharp edge. Yes, it's technically faster than the 350Z, but like I said, that's not everything. The 370Z might be too refined, thus taking it away from the raw excitement and push it to the limit feeling. While I do concede that the 370Z has a better interior and amenities than the 350Z, the 370 is lagging behind with its interior when compared to other similar cars, especially cars of the current era. The 350's interior isn't fantastic, but it was adequate for its time. The 370Z is a solid, reliable, and fun sports car. It has a better appointed interior than the 350Z, and is also a bit faster, but to sum it up, I think the 350Z is a better car because it was regularly updated to stay fresh. It was just a cool car to have at the time, and it will be remembered that way. When it was launched, it was totally new and exciting. High sales of the 350Z was great for Nissan. And finally, the driving sensation in a 350Z is visceral, raw, and thrilling. The character of the car and how it makes you feel, still, to this day, is one of the best. I know some people really aren't going to want to hear this, but I think as time goes on, we'll look back at these two cars and see how the 350Z had a big impact. I believe the 350 will be remembered, whereas the 370 will kind of fade into obscurity. Well, if you don't hate me, please consider subscribing. I have plans for many more videos, all of which I work very hard to produce. Earning your subscription would mean so much to me. I genuinely appreciate it. I put around 20 hours into making this video. I do it all myself, learning to edit software, doing a ton of research, writing a book of information and scripting, designing the layout of the video, putting it all together and editing. It's a boatload of work, but I do it for my viewers. I appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. See you next time.